Hey guys, what's going on? It is good to see you. It is good to be seen by you. How are you this evening? I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live on a Thursday evening, and I hope everything is just spiffy. I apologize for the late start. I had some business I had to attend to, but I'm here now, and that's pretty kind of awesome, isn't it? But anyway, so I hope you're well and that your evening is going all right. For some reason, ye old Twitter streaming does not appear to be working. There it is. Okay, it's working now. So if you're watching us over on Twitter, yay, hello, thank you, welcome. But let me just go down here. Daniel Rowan, Michael Dale, Recon, Wheeling Dragon, and who all else is out there? Rabbit Wrangler, Alan Canning, Lord Misfit, Savo, good morning to you. The YouTube notification woke you up. It's good to know that that's working. So let me tell you a little bit about that, guys. Let me tell you a little bit about that. If you are not already, please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and you too can be notified. You can be awoken by notifications that tell you, hey, the Dungeon Delver has definitely got some stuff going on right now. Because we 5 nights a week, guys, a live stream classic tabletop RPG stuff to you, whether it is live plays like we had last night. And let me tell you what, we had the effervescent and awesome authoress Alyssa Hazel in the house playing D&D with us. And we hope we can pull her back in. We hope we can get her back for another game. But even if we don't, check out her stuff on Amazon. Alyssa Hazel, she just dropped an audio book called For Those Who Haunt You. I have read a couple of her works, and they're really rather good. The Third Test and Twitching Light, the latter of which is an anthology of horror and speculative fiction. I do recommend. But yeah, we played AD&D last night. We played AD&D Tuesday night, and tomorrow night we're going to be playing some classic Gamma World. We're kind of rebooting the whole campaign tomorrow night. So I'm excited about that. And if that excites you, again, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. If you want to support the show on Patreon, there's the Patreon link right scrolling right across right there. Or you can support us here on YouTube with a YouTube membership. They start at just $1 on Patreon and $2 over here on YouTube. I have tried to set that to be the same price, so I understand if you go over there and do that there. And so thank you all for all that you do. And I'm ready. Are you guys ready? I'm ready. As I said, tomorrow we will be playing some Gamma World, and that's a lot of fun. And our Let's Plays are a lot of fun because you guys can ask questions and interact. We'll answer questions for you. You don't have to super chat or anything like that. You can just you can just ask on. And if I don't catch it in the chat, somebody in the chat may, or somebody in the game may. If I miss it completely, someone in the game or in the chat may say, hey, Bill, this was asked. So never fear. We will do our level best to get to you. Now, maybe you're one of those new viewers, because I think I'm gonna look at this real quick. Let me just dash over to the YouTube channel. We're 6,475 subscriptions here, and that is just delightful. So maybe you're one of those folks who's joined us recently, and if you are, namaste. Thank you so much. Just appreciate it more than you know. So you might be curious about what we're doing. Hello, Kabuki Kid. Good to see you. Vinny, hi. Good to see you. We're I say we like there's more of me around right now. No, it's just me. But we, the thing here. We are just a live streaming show about classic tabletop RPGs, and it's something that I sincerely hope you will stick around, and you'll want to be part of on the red, as they say. Now tonight, we're going to get into something a little bit, and I kind of want to talk a little bit tonight about Greyhawk, and we're going to look. We're going to dig back in, and this is your fault, by the way, everyone out there. If you're watching this, this is your fault entirely, because, well, the world of Greyhawk set, and I got to make sure that I've got all this stuff pulled up here correctly. The world of Greyhawk set is, without a doubt, it's not just my favorite campaign setting. It is like I don't have another campaign setting that I get into. This is it. That's not to say that I don't think that others are worthy. They are. It's just this Greyhawk is my jam. And I hope it will. I hope it's something that you guys will come to enjoy. Rory, good to see you. Robert Turner, good to see you too. So I want to talk a little bit about the lore, but before I get super duper into that, I want to talk a little bit about canon, and lore, and what all that means. And to do that, we need to talk a little bit about Warhammer 40K. Now, if you're freaking out, if you're starting to twitch, if you're thinking that, oh my God, he's going to start bringing in Warhammer 40K into AD&D, he's going to talk about some weird ass crossover that he's bringing up. No, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Hang on a second. I need to hydrate. Anyway, for the longest time, Warhammer 40K had a very goofy canon to it. About all that they told us were the names of chapters, the nature of the threats that humanity faced, the fact that the emperor was a corpse god being held right at the edge of life and death, and that 10,000 souls a day had to be fed to him to keep him alive for the empire, lest chaos and aliens just destroy everything. As the years went on, the guys at Games Workshop kind of rejected the gonzo. And let me tell you something, if you weren't there back in 88, 89, Warhammer was really, really gonzo. It was bordering on silly in places. So they really embraced the grimdark a lot as they built the canon, and what they came to what they came to a point in the mid 90s where they said, okay, it is the year 40,998. So it's still the 41st millennium, or it's still the 40th millennium. But basically, it was kind of like a Y2K sort of thing. It was stuck right there. They intimated that when the new year, decade, century, millennium kicked over, that bad things were going to happen. And that's fine. But fans, a lot of fans said, advance the dang timeline. What happens next? You can't introduce new stuff if you just say it's M40998 or M41998, whatever it is, all the time. And what made it worse was there were, just like there are humans, elves, and dwarves, and orcs in just kind of a generic fantasy setting, in Warhammer 40K, there are humans, elves, dwarves, and orcs. Well, they got rid of the elves. They just, I'm sorry, they got rid of the dwarves. They got rid of the dwarves and just said, the region of space occupied by the squats, as they call them, the region of space occupied by the squats was like every world were tomb worlds of this race called the Necrons, who are basically Terminators or Berserkers, if you want to go back a little further. And they all woke up at the same time and ate the dwarves. The end. No more dwarves. And then they said, but there's a new race called the Tau. And the Tau basically scratched the itch of people who like anime mixed in with their 40K. But this created a problem. So people were like, wait, did all this happen in the year 998? Like all of this just happened in 1 year? Advance the stinking timeline. And then they introduced Primaris Marines, which are like taller, chonkier Marines, and said they've always been, they've been around for like 1,000 years. What? So they face two choices. They could either keep retconning and saying this stuff was already here, or they could advance the clock. The problem is they've intimated bad things are getting even worse. And if they advance the clock even a couple of years, that's the Tyranid Hive fleet, which are basically space locusts that may have eaten all life from all galaxies in a good chunk of the local galactic group before getting to the Milky Way. That means that they're even closer to Terra, that the forces of chaos have advanced, and so on and etc. So they advanced the timeline a little bit and introduced a few changes. And people have been more or less okay with that. I mean, Warhammer pay pigs are going to pay whatever. Now, let's look at another science fiction game, also kind of post-apocalypse, whatever, where people were really rooting for a timeline advance. Battletech. Everybody wanted to know where Alexander Kerensky went after the Star League fell. Were they going to come back? Were Wolf's Dragoons part of that? Are you ever going to have technology recover? Is it just forever going to be this slow grinding until the machines completely run down? What's it going to be? And the guys at FASA said, oh, well, we'll just, we'll advance the timeline willy-nilly. I think MechWarrior Dark Age, which was a click-based sort of collectible miniature game that they did for a while, that was they set that like almost 200 years in the future from the original game. And even before that, yes, they reintroduced Kerensky's forces as the clans, which was terribly implemented, and on and on and on and on. Well, here's the thing. All of the people who came up with these hooks and these plots and everything, the company itself has gone through at least 4 owners. FASA, I think WizKids for a while, somebody else, and now Fan Pro, if that's the name of the company, Fan something. And they don't necessarily, their writers and their creative vision may not jive with what the original was. So if you're constantly getting driven forward, you may wind up with stuff that just doesn't scratch your itch anymore. And you get unceremoniously dumped as a customer for tops. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. You basically get fired as a customer, whether it's intentional or not. And I felt fired as a customer when FASA introduced the clans. I didn't like them. I like the timeline advance, but what they did in 3050, I was just so disgusted by. I just kind of washed my hands of Battletech at that point. So there's this push to advance the timeline. And the problem is you get people in whose artistic vision may not mesh with what longtime fans enjoy. I mean, you've seen it so often. Comic books have done it. There's the dog's breakfast that is Star Wars now. People are like, hey, well, what happens after Star Wars? And we had like what, 30 years of lore just tossed out the window by Disney so they wouldn't have to pay all those people to potentially convert that stuff into movies, cartoons, and TV shows. So when people talk to me, let's bring this back to Greyhawk. When people talk to me about Greyhawk and, you mean like From the Ashes and Greyhawk Wars and the Greyhawk Gazetteer and all these articles, Council of Worms and blah, 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 blah. With respect, okay, I'm not calling it bad. If it's something you enjoy, I'm certainly not calling anyone out. I don't I don't care for it. I don't care for the direction. It doesn't suit me. It doesn't fit in well with Gary and Rob's and Jim Ward's approach. Respectfully. Now, despite what a lot of people might think, Greyhawk itself was not a redheaded stepchild at TSR. It sold as well as the best-selling campaign stuff that TSR was actively pushing during the height and heyday of second edition, and that is Forgotten Realms. Yes, Greyhawk did better than Dragonlance. Greyhawk did as good as Forgotten Realms. The product manager for the Greyhawk line at TSR had the sales figures. When she went over to Paizo, and people were like, oh, Greyhawk was like, just kind of an ancillary thing, just shoved off into the corner. It never garnered any attention. In a web forum, she came up and was like, yeah, no, actually it did. It garnered a lot of attention. It sold absolutely as well. So I'm sorry to hear that, John D. That is the problem with Advance the Timeline. And that is why I don't feel that necessarily embracing Greyhawk means embracing every part of Greyhawk. And I think you can if you create an open enough world, an actual toolkit for dungeon masters, which is what Gary did with the Greyhawk Folio, the World of Greyhawk, the articles he wrote in Dragon Magazine, the Gord the Rogue books, Accepting Come Endless Darkness. That world is as open and as vibrant as you need it to be. The flip side of that is, if you get if you get a setting that just kind of locks you in place, it's like, well, no, Orcus has been destroyed, yada yada yada. I mean, like, one of the most egregious Let's Advance the Timelines were the Against the Giant sequel that was written by a bunch of 2E guys. They consulted Gary a little bit, but one of them, Sean K. Reynolds, was like, yeah, no, I think you're just a jerk, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna change this and that and the other. But the premise of that is that the Giants and the Drow won, and the Kingdom of Jeff is gutted. So if you're a game master and you've been running a long-standing Greyhawk campaign, and you've run the G series, and that's the way your world is gone, you just got retconned. And so for me, and for a lot of DMs, this box set right here with a gold trim, that's it. That's the cutoff point. And I'm just going to say, guys, I don't want to sound dogmatic. I don't want to sound like I'm putting my foot down and ordering you to do things. That should be your cutoff too. I might suggest you take a look at Greyhawk Adventures because it's got stuff by Jim Ward and Rob Kuntz in it. But it's not world damaging, timeline affecting things. So if you guys have any questions about that or thoughts about that, you feel free, chat them up. But speaking of timelines, there actually is a Greyhawk timeline. There actually is a Greyhawk timeline, and we're going to take a little bit of a look at that while we talk about this. And it's not much, but it does merit a deep dive. So let's take a look. So here we go. Here's our Greyhawk timeline. I'm going to move this toolbar. It's in our way. Oh, I think I'm going to move. There we go. Oh, it's even more in our way. Thank you. Thank you so much. How about this? Since I apparently can't get rid of that for any reason at all. So Greyhawk's timeline actually does go back. Greyhawk's timeline does actually go back quite some time. Thousands of years, in fact. So we start off beginning of the Baklunish Sulwa Wars. First employment of humanoid mercenaries. Erd migrations east of Peak Point. Sulwa migrations begin. Now you have the nuclear war. The invoked devastation of the Reign of Colorless Fire strike. It is the twin cataclysms right there, folks. That is when basically the garden spot that was the Sul Empire is literally nuked out of existence. The Reign of Colorless Fire. And for all we know, it might have been a nuke. We might have some what is it? Elfstones of Shannara nonsense going on here. I don't think so. I don't think Gary intended this to be like Earth, 50,000 years in the future or something like that. But maybe you do. Founding of the Kingdom of Aerti, that's the Great Kingdom. Battle of a fortnight's length. Overking crowned and Rox's frontiers of Great Kingdom reach Greyhawk City. And that is in the first common year. Now, I want you to look at some of the time distances we're talking about here. There's 100 years. If you want to put your Greyhawk campaign in here, you've got hundreds of years to play with. This is not crammed cheek to jowl. Yes, there's a timeline. Yes, there's a little bit of canon here, but you're not drowned in it. And we continue. Age of Great Sorrow commences. Nomads appear in north. Outer dependencies of Aerti gain sovereignty. 356. Kingdom of Nyrond established. Kingdom of Keoland at peak. Turmoil between crowns. Founding of the Iron League, Bandit King, Sack Trigol, Rise of the Sea Princes. Demi-human realms of Ulek and Selene are affected. Might of Ayuz grows. Humanoid invasions become common. County of Ernst becomes Palatinate under Duchy of Ernst. Greyhawk becomes a free city. Rise of the Horn Society. Humanoids take Pomarge. Bone March falls to humanoids. Battle of Emerald Meadows. Horde of elemental evil scattered. 569. That's when the Temple of Elemental Evil starts to kick off. Scarlet Brotherhood first reported. Prince of Furiandi, Provost of Voluna kidnapped. And if you know your Temple of Elemental Evil, you'll know what who exactly that is. And in Common Year 576, Guide to the World of Greyhawk completed. That's it. That's it. And with little exception, right there we were, with little exception, there's not much given to you. There's 2 pages of history for you to digest. Well, 3, because it actually starts up here. I'm not going to read this line for line, but I mean, we can look at some of these. The Battle of Emerald Meadow highlights his growing realization on mutual interest. Contingents of men-at-arms and cavalry from Furiandi and Voluna, together with a force of dwarves from the Lort Mills, gnomes from the Kron Hills, and an army of elven archers and spearmen, fought together against a vast horde of evil men and humanoids, orcs, gnolls, ogres predominantly. The opposing forces met on the grassy fields south of the Velverdriva River. Several leagues below the city of Verbopunk, the allied forces were closing upon the stronghold of the evil creatures, a huge walled fortress known as the Temple of Elemental Evil, not far from the unfortunate village of Hamlet, when elven scouts reported that a huge army was approaching from the south. The Marshal of Furiandi, a leader of the combined forces, ordered a withdrawal northward to a position scouted earlier. Light cavalry skirmishes were sent out to screen the withdrawal, and no real fighting took place that day. When the horde of evil creatures marched forth next dawn, they were confronted by the serried ranks of the allied army. The pikes of Furiandi and Voluna were arrayed so that their flank was secured by the Velverdriva. In the center were deployed banners of horse, and on the allied left deployed bands of dwarves and gnomes, with a few units of elven archers placed in the intervals between. The humanoids fell immediately upon the left, while the men in the evil ranks rode to engage the center and right. The hordes of orcs, gnolls, and ogres thrust aside their hated foes and rushed to encircle the balance of the allied army. Thus, the fatal trap was sprung, for the whole allied army pivoted as squadrons of knights drove into the rear of the onrushing horde of evil, and squares of elves emerged from the gnarly forest on the left. Trapped in this pocket within the bend of the Velverdriva at their backs, and the human and demi-human army forming the cord of the arc, the packed mass of evil humans and humanoids fought hopelessly. When the great slaughter was finished, the allied army went on to besiege the Temple of Elemental Evil, and it fell in a fortnight. The demoness Zugmatoi was imprisoned in the ruins of the palace with special wards to prevent her escape. Only a few of the wicked leaders of the temple managed to escape, and it is suspected that these individuals were responsible for the subsequent kidnapping and total disappearance of the Prince of Furiandi. The prince, betrothed to the daughter of the Plar of Voluna and serving as provost of that state, as well as Marshal Ferrionti, was of key importance to the forces of good. Upon his marriage to Jolene of Veluna, the two states would have become a joint entity, and the archcleric ruling in matters spiritual, and the prince ascending the throne to become king, ruling in matters temporal. This state, with demi-human alliances, would certainly have waged continual war with the evil nations, and its previous successes boded ill for opponents. The prince's disappearance destroyed these plans, however, and brought about the current state of affairs in the Flannis, which is confused indeed. Humankind is fragmented into isolationist realms and different nations, evil lands, and states striving for good. The Backloonish countries in the northwest have grown in power. Nomads, bandits, and barbarians raid southward every spring and summer. Humanoid enclaves are strongly established and scattered throughout the continent, and wicked insanity rules in the Great Kingdom. The eventual result of all this cannot be foretold. And full stop. That's it. That's it. That's it, guys. That's all you need. What will you do next? Will the party recover Prince Thrummel in the Temple of Elemental Evil and finally enable the union of those two kingdoms? And turn all of the Flannis into a noble, bright place? Or will they never explore there, never free him? But that's it. That's all you need. You have everything you need for a campaign right there. That's all the lore. You can fill it in with whatever you want, however you want. Not your echo. No. Maybe you do. Maybe for your campaign. Robert Phillips said this is like remembering when McDonald's still only had 500 million sold on the sign. Is it up to 1 billion now? Over 1 billion sold? Raphael Dinkin, more lore bores and overwhelms your players. Exactly. I mean, I might snip that and send it to a player if they were like, hey, I just kind of want an overview of how things are going. Here it is. And that's really all you have to worry about. Don't get caught up in your head over, and look, it's going to sound like I'm throwing some shade here, okay? Now, I have never read the Dragonlance novels, not a one of them, but I've looked at the Dragonlance modules, and I don't think it's necessarily any fault of Wise and Hickman, but there's just this feeling that everything's been done for the adventurers already. Oh, well, Minster went over here and did this, and Tanis accomplished that, and Lord Soth did the other, and blah 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 blah. Thank you, Gonzalo. Truly a worthy super chat. It's very railroady to me. It's just drink from the fire hose, That's you're gonna drink from the fire hose. And if I, as a DM, no, you can run it however you want. Your characters can go over here and do this and do that and do the other. Okay, if I'm going to excise the Dragonlance from Dragonlance, basically at that point, I just have a nifty campaign map. If I'm going to excise the Elminster does everything for you from Forgotten Realms, then basically I've just got a fancy campaign map that I have to start filling back in myself. The world of Greyhawk, is filled up just enough. It's like a can of beef stock or a can of chicken broth, right? I mean, you know, nothing to stop you from getting Swanson's beef broth and opening it up, dump it in a bowl, heat it up, eat it. It'll consume the rest of your night. Rabbit Wrangler. The World of Greyhawk is the original campaign setting created for Gary's group back at Lake Geneva. It was invented by Gary. It was fleshed out and filled in as he ran campaigns and other notables ran campaigns. So there was there's a lot of stuff. And to be 100% honest, Gary created it after Dave Arneson had created the Kingdom of Blackmore. Gary created the world of Greyhawk. Blackmore, Greyhawk. You picking up what I'm putting down? So yeah, it was Gary's. Now, his original campaign map was not the map that that Darlene created, that, you know, we're also enamored with. It was kind of a rough sketch of that, but the initial map that he used was just a map of North America. Just boom, there you go, map of North America and fantasy locations. That is my wife's cat. She comes through to say hi every now and again. So to go back to my polemic though, if you compare the three, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk really unfetters the Dungeon Master. The problem is, all of us actual gamers might be perfectly happy if Wizards of the Coast just reprinted that box set over and over again. The modern gamer is not going to sit without tons and tons and tons and tons of lore. I remember, to go back to BattleTech, I have this great source book for BattleTech called The Periphery. BattleTech is a chunk of the galaxy. Not a huge chunk, but it is a piece of the Milky Way galaxy. And, you know, there's, using science fiction technology, there's worlds that are easily reachable. Out on the outer fringes of that section of the galaxy are little explored worlds called the Periphery. In addition to releasing books about the 5 great houses in BattleTech lore, they released a book called The Periphery. And I remember back in the 90s, I got that book and I liked it. I love it. And I remember flipping through it and reading like a good 8 column inches on a world that, on one of the Periphery worlds, and some specific details about the Periphery world. And I remember thinking, what an oddly lonely little section of paragraph this is, or an oddly lonely little section of lore. And it was well crafted. It was intriguing, But it's buried in a 200-page book that, honestly, how many game masters are going to read more than once or twice for pleasure? How many are ever really going to incorporate that? But with something like this, with something like Greyhawk, that's as much for you to detail as you want. When we looked at that section of Greyhawk map on the screen, and you guys can tell me if you want to see it again, the Flaness is a little chunk of the actual continental map of Greyhawk. It is. It's not huge. What lies, beyond Here Be Dragons? I mean, maybe you want to introduce tieflings in your Greyhawk game. You stat them up for 1E. Where are they? They come from the far west, 2 Greyhawk map sizes away. They've just never come in this direction. Maybe that's what you want to do. The point is not use tieflings. The point is it's a huge unexplored area for you, the game master, to fill in with people, events, history, all of that timeline that we just read. All of that timeline is literally just that section of map, the Darlene map. And you know how big that thing is. 30-mile hexes. Count them going across. Count them going up. And then look at that section in the World of Greyhawk book, and then see how small that map is compared to the rest of the continent. And then you start to realize exactly how open it is. All those cool one-off dungeons, your own mega dungeon, different kinds of dragons, all that stuff. There's room for it. And I look at other maps, I look at other campaign settings, all that stuff is filled in. Whole world map. Everything down to little villages on fishing coasts. Little fishing villages on the coast, sorry. All filled in. And Praxis, that is the essence, that distills the essence of what I'm talking about. It's awesome in its sparseness. Anytime you want to add something, you can, and it won't mess up with your world lore. Look, you like B4 The Lost City, but you also like you also like World of Greyhawk. Put it in one of those unpopulated areas. You like was it I-5, 6, and 7, or 7, 8, and 9? I think it's I-7, 8, and 9, right? The Desert of Desolation. Drop it in the middle of the bright desert or the Sea of Dust. I mean, I put the Isle of Dread off the Amedio jungle coast. So much you can do. Exactly, Marzalea. Exactly. So that is unquestionably the biggest reason why. Now, this question came up. Drone Swarm says, Bill didn't participate in Living Greyhawk. I did not. At that time, I was running a very sparse Greyhawk campaign, and I was not interested in promulgating third edition. So I mean, that really, and that's something else. A living campaign with you and a group of DMs and some mutually agreed on conceits can be very, very good. But the idea that a group of players decided my canon for me, ah, ah, no. Well, we fought this battle out, or we stomped this dungeon, and that's, I'm just, I'm just not, I'm not feeling it. Here's an example. Now, if you go on Cannon Fire, this blows my damn mind, and I'll tell you guys just a little bit about how Canon can trip you up with some Cannon Fire uh, uh, fun in just a second. If you go on Cannon Fire, my Greyhawk modules that I wrote and just kind of released into the world are on their Greyhawk map. They consider that canon. That's to their peril. Okay. That's to their own peril. But they did that, and I was very flattered by that. Yes, White Plume Mountain is in the Rift Lands. And to be 100% clear, the LGTSA and other society, they very much did have a living campaign. Gary would say to Rob, "What went on in your game last night?" "Well, the party did this, this, and this." And "Jim, what about you?" "Well, this and this happened." Or they would have letters that they would swap and that sort of thing. So they built it organically too back then. But Gary was also not on a mailing list back then saying, "This is what happened in the world of Greyhawk. Everybody change it." I'm sorry, if you're running the A series, it's already been overcome. Hey, Josh Butler, good to see you. So I think a living campaign can be just fine, provided you and your group are all on the same page. And I might not be on the same page as a lot of other DMs. I wouldn't participate in a living campaign. And if somebody came to my game and said, actually, the Giants won in Jeff. So if you're going to run the Against the Giants game, that's not correct. I would be like Eddie Murphy in at the house party scene in Trading Places. You know what I'm talking about. So I just feel like there is ample enough room for everyone to do their own thing in Greyhawk. The more I think about it, the more I'd like to do stuff in the far west of Greyhawk now, but that's for another time. That's for another discussion. Hey, Coleman, wasn't there more people down here? As I do believe some of the guests have retired upstairs, sir. Anyway, This Greyhawk box set is perfect for me the way it is because it lets me do what I want. I mean, imagine as a kid you get a coloring book, but all the pages are colored in except for a few panels in each picture, right? I just invent a historian or sage who disagrees and moves on. The first mod I played set in Greyhawk Village. No, believe it or not, the first module I played set in Greyhawk was U1. That's right. Friend of my sister's came and ran an AD&D game with us for a few weeks, and we played Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. I had an elven fighter magic user who picked up that stupid lodestone, got it stuck to his hand. Rob, have a great night. Thank you for stopping by. It was lovely to see you. Exactly so, Kabuki. And I was, let's see, my sister played a Cavalier, so at least, I don't think Unearthed Arcana was out, but I know that the article with Cavaliers had dropped because my sister Beth played a Cavalier. Oh, thank you, Raphael. I appreciate it. Sleep well. Greetings to Germany. Guten Nacht in Deutschland. Sorry, that was horrible. I am so sorry that I inadvertently caused the death of your language, Raphael. What are you people talking about? Supper time and bedtime. You're gonna go tell the others. He's gonna tell all of Germany on me. Oh, well, thank you very much. Kabuki said we had one Cavalier in our game until everyone decided we hated them. My sister ran her Cavalier, strangely enough, favored the bow. Her Cavalier favored the bow. I think she just wanted it to run a Cavalier because she got to have a unicorn mount. Yeah, we were we played fast and loose with it back then. I don't think Mark leaned heavily into the, you have to do this, that, and the other. Do traveling spell okay, so here, this is my attitude on traveling spell books and that. And this includes cantrips. If the play okay. I consider it a rule option that players can select. Traveling spell books can be very helpful. I deem that there are two spell books that a magic user has. There's their study spell book, and then there's not from Unearthed Arcana. I just lifted kind of the idea. The traveling spell book. The study spell book, they keep hidden. Maybe they keep it in a bank vault in the city. And then when they travel from point A to point B, they guard it with their lives. They insist on a false bottom in the cart. It's wrapped in oil skin, maybe stored in a locked box. Bricks of asbestos, keep it from being burned. Then they have their adventuring spell book. If the part, it's like, okay, we've set up a camp. We're going into the dungeon. It's a mega dungeon. We know that. I'm taking this book. Then if they get breathed on by a fire lizard, dripped on by a gelatinous cube, or absorbed by a gelatinous cube, um, hit by an enemy magic user's fireball, has flaming oil thrown on them, any number of disasters that can befall their spell book, they've at least got the other one and they can start back up with that one. But the individual, like, this holds spells levels 1 to 3, this holds, you know, it can hold this many spells and that sort of thing. I don't do that, but if the players wanted to do that, if that's how they want to do it, I will let them. And it's the same with cantrips. If they wish to use cantrips and have a book of cantrips and substitute 4 cantrips for one first level spell because they can find 4 cantrips that are as good as a light or sleep, you know, or write or erase or what identify, then I will permit that. But that's up to them. Generally speaking, it's 2 books. It's a study spell book, and it is the adventuring spell book, we'll call it, to make that distinction. Well, books can take all kinds of damage. You know, fire giant rears back and hits your magic user with a boulder of granite. Yes, books have to save versus crushing blow. It's not just fire and acid. Could be extreme cold. Paper gets brittle and breaks, just like crumbles like dry leaves. Yeah, I'm not a. So on the one hand, I think there's probably there's a tiny handful, no pun intended, of cantrips that I actually like, that I think are actually useful. Blue light, you know, you memorize 4 blue light spell or 4 blue light cantrips. Could potentially give you just enough light to read a scroll. There's one that basically it's the old thumb lighter trick, you know, the magician would do that, and the tip of their thumb would have a little flame like a lighter. That will absolutely work for lighting oil or even lighting webs on fire. Firefinger, thank you, Robbie. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Harry is a fun cantrip. Harry. Clean. You can basically, you can make something clean. Yeah, and I mean, Alan Canning makes a good a very good point. Realism at play with spell books. What about other things in worn armor and weapons? Yeah, exactly. I mean, at that point, you're starting to slide down the road towards something like Pendragon, and that's not D&D. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. What I like Unearthed Arcana for is the concatenation of spells, of magic user of new magic user spells that have, and cleric and illusionist and druid, that have come up in modules. the value of, now this is going to sound like a contradiction in terms, the value of mundane magic items. It's like, you know, a +1 longsword, or I'm sorry, you know, a +1 dagger, not +1 versus this, that, or the other, just a +1 dagger. You know, there's a lot of items. A wand of fireballs, which comes up in more than a few modules, is not detailed in the Dungeon Master's Guide for XP values. So there's a fair few things that occurred in modules that some of them, even in the modules, didn't have XP and GP values listed for them. So it's nice to have all of them in one place. Don't like the Barbarian, don't like the Cavalier. Well, wait, let me back up. I don't mind the Cavalier insofar as the Paladin is not a subclass. Cavaliers are vainglorious, they are arrogant, they are greedy, they are everything that a paladin isn't supposed to be. I do not agree with a paladin being put as a subclass of cavalier at all. I like the did I mention already? I am entirely okay with the thief acrobat. I had a friend run a thief acrobat. It was never a problem. It wasn't game breaking and it wasn't stultifyingly dull. He had a lot of fun with it. You know, he's running around, and we were playing the G series, throwing boulders at him, and he's like, whoa, you know. I don't think it's any more game breaking than having a high level monk in your game. What's wrong with a barbarian is not, I mean, barbarian is a culture. All right. It's not a class. I would say, you know, a fighter who, you know, comes out of the North, was kidnapped when his family was massacred, made to push a millstone, sold into slavery to fight in pits, then freed and run out on the wild, started robbing tombs with a pair of thieves. He's still a fighter. Now, if they'd done something with Berserker, yeah, I could have gotten into that. And I mean, talk about front-loaded D12 hit dice. Good Lord. Has to get XP from breaking magic items. This smells of sorcery. That just opens the door for, that's what my character would do. Don't like it. Thank you, Robbie. Yes. A forced ethos, just like the Cavalier. I'm beginning to suspect Gonzalo does not agree with my point of view. But then, I mean, just like the AD&D timeline, I stop at some of the utility in Unearthed Arcana. You know, people all the time they're, well, I like non-weapon proficiencies, and it's good, and you know, these books, and you know, Manual of the Planes and this, that, and I'm like, I don't even consider those 1E books. Well, they are 1E books. Not so much. No. I think for me, It's like the hard line is at the 3 monster books, deities and demigods, and the 3 core books. There's a bit of hazy gray that envelops Unearthed Arcana, but that's it. That's it. It's just vacuum. There's no more atmosphere after that. When role-playing patrol captains PCs meet, do you consider their alignments? Yeah, I mean, I feel like, Alan, that's a good question. I'm gonna put that up. I think you have to. I think you have to. It could be an interesting interaction if you have a party that sticks with say a patrol for a while, exactly on the border of 2 kingdoms. It could be interesting. Like, this is a lawful good predominantly kingdom. This is a chaotic good predominantly kingdom, like between, Selene and somewhere else. Are they going to have words? I mean, so yeah, I absolutely. And let me tell you what, even 2 lawful good kingdoms might have very different political aims. I mean, people don't know about this, but the United States and Great Britain and Canada in the early 1930s, they all did workups for shooting wars with each other. And this is not a Batman level, a plan to deal even with my friends. This was the British saw how powerful the United States was becoming, even in the face of the Great Depression, and said, we think in the next 5 or 6 years there's going to be a hot trade war over resources between us and the United States. It's going to be a naval war, but it may come down to having boots on the ground in the United States. So, just War of 1812, just another century and another war. And there winds up being this, this gradual tension starting to rise. Never anything serious, but Corporal Schicklesgruber, that put an end to that. But they had war plans. 2 ostensibly lawful good nations, United States and Great Britain. Don't come at me with politic discussion in the chat, please. I'm just making an example. And yeah, so you absolutely have to consider alignments, and then even weigh those, and be like, think about those carefully. So yeah, it could absolutely happen that, hey, here's a patrol from High Folk, and they go out to the edge of their kingdom. They run into some Paranlanders. Are they friendly towards one another? Check, see how the kingdoms are. Reaction rules, guys. Reaction rules. Do I generalize then which Greyhawk alignments are predominant? So I'm glad you brought that up, because we actually have, if we look, let me see here. Find that real quick. Okay, that's deities. That's not what I want. I hate it when it does that. Give me just a second, guys. I'm pulling this up real quick. Is that our examination of populations? Well, in the world of Greyhawk, the map of the world of Greyhawk, in the cyclopedia here, details out how alignments are in each given kingdom. And I'm looking for that illustration. I'm looking for it. But I try and take that into consideration. Like, what is the national alignment? Like, how do they kind of place themselves? Here we go. Is that it? Or was it the one above? Yes, here we are. Okay, so this is regional alignments. Here we are, regional alignments. And we have a little kind of Punnett square here. And you can see what each kingdom has got going on. Got the moon over here. The moon symbol indicates chaotic and good. And you've got true neutral. And neutral good is the torch. And zoom in a little bit on this. And there's some word about this. Alan, to answer your question, as important as the political system in a country is, the amount of respect for life and order held by its people and rulers and reflected in its laws. While highly subjective, such attitudes can be measured. We are on page, Alan, we are on page 44. 44. Oh yeah, I can absolutely. So Drone Swarm brings up a good point here. We played a neutral evil kingdom ruled over by a lawful evil god. I use perfectly understandable. A lawful evil god is going to be a strong man. He's going to say, look, I can't have you maniacs just running around doing stuff willy-nilly. If you're going to do bad, you're going to do bad, and you're going to follow my orders while you do bad. Order, by any means necessary, is the primary ethos in that case. But to continue, let's see. Medium areas should be entered with some caution, but are safer and more tolerant than dark areas. Light areas are closely allied with good. Those tinged with gray are devoted to evil or tend towards it. Travelers move through those areas at some risk to their lives. Symbols indicate the degree of respect for law and property within each region. Again, those areas cast in chaos present special dangers to travelers and merchants and are not often traversed. So you can see we've got lighter and darker grays, but then sort of bunched around, with the exception of a big dark gray area here. So you've got two lawful good nations bordering each other. You got some chaotic good in that nation, but lawful good and lawful neutral over here, and true neutrality, and so on and etc. So you can have nations that abut each other. You can have nations that abut each other, be of slightly differing aligns, and how you handle that's going to come up to you as a dungeon master. That is really what's going to make the difference. Thank you, Wave. Thank you for hanging around with us. You have an absolutely wonderful work time, as good as you can. So, and Drone Swarm, again, accurately saying, Valuna, Jeff, most of the Sheldamar Valley connecting to Greyhawk, mostly good. Exactly. Is that a warning, Kabuki? Don't get her started. Oh, you've already gone. Okay. Now, with all of that said, one thing I can tell you from personal experience, I do know that the world of Greyhawk was due for a greater fleshing out, at least of some cities. A big one that Gary was working on was Stoink City of Thieves. He had a manuscript working for that. Stoink, by the way, in case you're wondering, is on the eastern end of the Lake of Unknown Depths. I was excited for that. I knew Gary was working on it. And yeah, things just kind of, stuff happened. What can I tell you? So I'm kind of blathered on about lore. You guys got any questions? Doc Flamingo, good to see you, brother. That sounds awesome, Drone Swarm. Sounds like a lot of fun. Rookaroos, City of Ravens, is similar to Dina's Bran, an actual fortress from the Dark Ages in Wales. But anyway, Rookaroos was a major city. Very cool. Very cool. And again, not to sound like a broken record, that's the beauty of it. That's the joy of it. And you guys might wonder, how is he going to flesh out the Greyhawk setting of his Tuesday night game? I'm going blank. Fantastic Foltis State, further northeast. Yes, that was I've gone blank. I can picture it on the map. Hey, don't worry about it, Doc Flamingo. I appreciate it. Also true, Alan. Doc, I know you're going to re-up, so I'm just going to leave you. I'm going to leave you in the credits. Don't worry about it. That, by the way, even if you're just supporting for $1 a month, your name goes in the show credits. Am I thinking of the Theocracy of the Pale? That may be what I'm thinking of, Drone Swarm. But it has been a long time since I've dug around up there, since most of my Monday night game is doing the Against the Giants series, which, let me tell you something, guys. If you guys have not run the G series, find a DM who's running it and playing it, or run it yourselves. It is so good. It is so good. Takes prep. But if you pull it off, the party is currently in they are currently in G2. Hopefully getting back to that on this coming Monday. Yeah, the Pale is not nice. They will basically pursue heretics into other countries, just like, might makes right. God is right. Therefore, God has all the might and all the right. So, yeah, They will absolutely raid across. And there's a perfect example of a not nice lawful good kingdom. They are extremely, extremely religiously intolerant. That is correct, Alan. The Temple of the Sun is in the Sea of Dust. Sounds tricky to get them there. The logistics of going into a long desert adventure, as I said in the write up for that module, are really beyond the scope of explaining in a module, or at least they were for me. Yeah, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. The theocracy, the pale, the gatekeepers of Greyhawk. Oh goodness. But ran G1. Elemental was summoned and then control was lost. Hijinks ensued. Steading was trashed. I can believe it. Elementals are bad juju if you lose control of them, which I think is the point. So G1 is like in the, I'm trying to think. I feel like G1 is kind of in the northwest of Jeff, but G2 and G3, G2 is distressingly close to the capital city. I can definitely understand why Duke Owen is sweating it. G3, I think, is further south because it's located in the Hell Furnaces. And then the D series is just all straight underneath it, but it's close enough to give them promises to give them, must be getting tired, problems, to give them problems. But yes. And the thing is, if you start your campaign in T1, or if you start it set in the city of Greyhawk, or if you're doing the A series, like say you're doing Keep on the Borderlands near the Pomarge where Gary recommended it be put, and then the party goes, they level up, and then they adventure through the A series. You're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles from Jeff. You've got to work on a pretty big conceit to get the party from that to that. It is quite the hike. And yet, when the Monday night game went there, and I roll, I think they had like 3 encounters: wild horses and 2 merchants on their way. They're just literally just. Now, oddly enough, once they got into Jeff and started making their way to the capital, they had an encounter with bugbears, they had an encounter with ogres, and they had an encounter with a small army of orcs inside Jeff, which fit the deteriorating situation so well. It's like, well, it's quiet getting here. Uh-oh. Are griffins and hippogriffs not that hard for PCs to acquire? Fighting the parents. Well, let's see, which is it? One of them is only semi-intelligent. One of them, now I got to look at it. Dang it. That is not what I wanted to open. All right, so let's see. Griffins. We'll start with them because G. So griffins are semi-intelligent. They're uncommon, which means, you can run into them. In cliffs and rocky habitats, you're only going to run into them in a lair 1 in 4 times. And if you're out on the plains and I'm the GM, I would discard that. If I'm describing this as gentle rolling plains as far as the eye can see, unless you want to do like an outcrop, like an eote or something like that. If encountered in their lair, there's a 75% chance there'll be 1 or 2 eggs or young for every 2 griffins. The young are non-combative, but the adults will attack until killed. Fledglings sell for 5,000 gold pieces, eggs for 2,000 on the open market. So they can be tamed for use as fierce, loyal steeds. Now, as far as hippogriffs go, they likewise are semi-intelligent, only 10% in lair. They are rare. Rocky crags and similar places is where they make their nest. Griffins attack and eat hippogriffs sometimes. Now, it doesn't say anything about them being usable as mounts, and their eggs eggs are valued at 1,000 gold pieces, fledglings at 2 to 3,000. So it would imply that they are available. I wouldn't say that they're particularly easy to acquire. Semi-intelligence implies that you might be able to make a deal with them. That's a good question. I should ask Rob that. I should ask Rob that over on Twitter. And yeah, I mean, hypothetically, a druid could summon them. I got to be honest, Alan, I hate to sound like an old meanie head, but I would not just have them available when, like a +3 intelligence sword, like a talisman of the sphere, a ring of wishes, etc. When those things hit the open market, generally speaking, they are bought really, really quick. Think of them like a Spider-Man or Superman #1. Don't tell me that the name of the comic is Journey into Mystery or whatever. You know what I mean? When they come up on the market, they are beyond the means of the plebs and are bought fairly quickly. And that's that. Now, Alan, if the timing is right, animal friendship, what have you, and the dice go their way, absolutely. But just go purchase them? No. I would not allow that. So, but you as a DM, you may prefer to do that. But one thing I will tell you, adults are always wild. Was it last year Are you here before? I don't recall. I 3D printed up some stuff for a buddy of mine. It included Griffin Cavalry, a lot of Griffin Cavalry. Hey, Ellen, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But anyway, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Any additional questions? Anyone at all? We've been going for about 90 minutes tonight. Kabuki is back. Kabuki, do you have any questions? Not related to your favorite metal band, for all-girl metal band from Mexico. So tomorrow night, I'm only mentioning tomorrow night because I want to give you guys a chance to respond, reply, post questions if you have any before we wrap up. Tomorrow night we are playing Gamma World. It is a total reboot, even though Doomsword's character did survive. He is retiring him, and we are creating a new party of PCs. If you're familiar with the module Albuquerque Starport, that is what we are going to be running. I have found that Gamma World modules are fairly cromulent, so I want to give that one a try. It is the pack-in module with the Gamma World Game Master screen. Is Blackmoor on the Canon Greyhawk map? Yes, it is. The Land of Black Ice, the Kingdom of Blackmoor, exists on the World of Greyhawk map. Now, what I do, oh, well, then I hope you'll tune in, Praxis. What I do with Blackmoor is its own place, the DA series, City of the Gods, etc., like that. However, beneath the ice, which is black for a reason because of strange radiations, is the wrecked spaceship. So in Blackmoor, or rather, Blackmoor in Greyhawk is coterminous with its own plane. If you ride into the mists there in Blackmoor, you're not exactly in Blackmoor, and you're not exactly in Greyhawk anymore. Well, you are in Blackmoor, but you're not, you haven't completely left Greyhawk. It's kind of a hazy interdimensional area. So yeah, I'm hip with it. You've used a Starport module in your AD&D game. Wow. Far out, Praxis. Does protection removal from a paladin actually prevent physical attacks from damaging them? No, it does not. So let's talk about protection from evil, because that is a baseline D&D question. Let's open the player's handbook and let's look at protection from evil. Now, the paladins from protection from evil. I once had a DM argue that the 1-inch radius given for the paladins from protection from evil meant it literally was just an inch out from his skin. 1 map inch, 10 feet. It's a 10-foot radius, guys. The paladin comes from 3 hearts and 3 lions. Olger had a 10-foot radius of protection around him. Anyway, let's move on. So let's look at protection from evil. And then we're going to look at the Paladin's protection from evil to see if there's any. So let's see if there's any differences. So here we go. Yeah. It's like a shield from Dune. Just don't point a las gun at it. So here's the basic protection from evil. When this spell is cast, it acts as if it were a magical armor upon the recipient. And there is a protection from evil 10-foot radius. So the protection encircles the recipient at a 1-foot distance, thus preventing bodily contact by creatures of an enchanted or conjured nature, such as aerial servants, demons, devils, jinn, ifrit, elementals, imps, invisible stalkers, night hags, quasits, salamander, water weirds, windwalkers, and zorn. Summoned animals or monsters are similarly hedged out from the protected creature. Now, that is where we stop. Evil magic user cast summon monsters. They can't hit you behind protection from evil. And none of those other creatures can. However, an orc would be at -2 to hit you. He would be slightly repulsed by you. But the bodily contact is by creatures of an enchanted or conjured nature, not all evil creatures. An enchanted or conjured creature, not all evil creatures. Yes. So if we look then, because we have got a lot of examples of this. Protection from evil 10-foot radius is just that. It's a 10-foot radius, and that's what you get with a paladin. 1 inch equals 10 feet. Magic user, believe it or not, has protection from evil. Or good. By the way, anyone who's interested in asking me this beforehand, no, I don't have anti-paladins in my game. So let's just skip back. Is it available as it shouldn't be available as a druid spell, I don't think. Yeah, no, it's not. And the continuing emanation of a protection from evil. See character spells in a 1-foot radius, or I'm sorry, in a 1-inch radius around the paladin, which of course translates to 10 feet. MS, you can find all of the 1E AD&D core rulebooks on Drive-Thru RPG, and I will put that link up real quick for you. You can find those all on Drive-Thru RPG and get print-on-demand copies of the book. Let's see. So if you want to check this out, you can get a copy printed on demand, or you can get this very, very clean PDF. Damien, I'm sorry, what was your question? Not even as enemies? Oh, for anti-paladins. Yeah, no, I don't. The world is full of enough evil guys than for me to have them. Also, the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual, Fiend Folio, Monster Manual 2, all of the core AD&D books. Some of them are not print on demand. Monster Manual 2 is. Fiend Folio is now available print on demand. So you can get Fiend Folio print on demand as well as Monster Manual 2. So there you go. There's your core. Unfortunately, Legends and Lore, I think, is, let me see. You may have to go Legends and Lore. Let me try. Yes. So it is available. It is not available as print on demand, and it is not the unexpurgated version. It is not the 144 page. It is the 128 page Deities and Demigods. So yeah, if you want the unexpurgated Deities and Demigods, it is out on the web. I recommend you track it down. It is pure unobtainium. And I don't mind if someone gets a copy. In fact, let me see if I can share that with you guys. I think it is available. Let me see if I can find this. What I do for you guys, right? It's not on Wayback Machine. And there are lots and lots and lots and lots of there we go. This is a nice clean scan, and this is the unexpurgated version. So you should definitely grab a copy. And I would send that to I would just use Lulu or some other printing service to get a physical copy of that printed. Anyway, any more questions, anyone? Any questions at all? Let me know and I will answer them for you. There's my puppy. I see my hound. We've already done that one. Are any Greyhawk citizens flat earthers? Pastel Fox wants to know. I don't know if any Greyhawk citizens are flat earthers. I mean, hey, it's a fantasy world. Greyhawk could be a flat earth or flat earth, as the case may be. Yes, I have had deities interfere in Greyhawk definitely before. I've told the story of the Mal'arith, the type 5 demoness, who, well, it was not Mal'arith, it was actually Renereme, who got her hands on a helm of opposite line, not realizing what it was, blew her saving throw, and as soon as she put it on, she became lawful good. Where do I place N1 Cult of the Reptile God in Orlane? Is it a follow-up to U1? I don't consider it that great of a follow-up. I just follow its placement in the World of Greyhawk map. Let's see how to go about doing my conversion for various editions when not an item or monster common to all. No, I'll just grab something interesting and tweak it until I think it's not going to break anything. Sorry, I don't have an easy to use formula. Obscure ruling is at the attribute constitution quite well, if not into the end. -1 con per raised dead. I always use that. I always use that rule. However, I would point out con loss. Well, If your character qualifies for a class, loss of an attribute does not remove you from the class. You start out with a bare minimum wisdom to be a ranger, or I'm sorry, bare minimum constitution to be a ranger. You get slain, you get raised back up, you lose one con. As far as I'm concerned, you're still a ranger. I leave that up to them, Alan. That's a good question, but I leave that up to them. I don't make them choose one. Hey, Squirrel Hermit. Hello, good to see you. The reason for asking was your paladin had to fight a Baragura. Shouldn't have been able to touch you. Baragura is a type of devil or demon. Or demon. I know it's from the lower planes. It shouldn't have touched your paladin. Your paladin should have been able to walk straight towards it and keep it moving back away from you at 10 feet. The only time that changes is if you corner the monster, give it no recourse, and start attacking it. Then it's going to attack you. It'll still be at -2, but it's still going to swing and hit. It's still going to swing and hit. So do not for a second think that, oh, well, I can just attack this creature because I have protection from evil and it's not going to harm me. No, it's if you cornered it, it's like when you turn undead. When you turn them, they leave for 3 to 12 rounds. Now, if they're all packed in a 10 by 10 room and you turn undead, and they'll turn around and cram themselves in the corner. If you go over there and start smacking them with a mace, they're going to turn around and start hitting you back. You've given them no recourse. They'll default to their original programming. Or if it's a case of an intelligent undead, like a white, heaven help you, a specter, something like that, it has nowhere to go. Your mere presence causes it distress, and you're cornering it. It'll attack you. If they can climb down the cliff to get away from you, they will. Then they absolutely will. I would say those bony fingers could enable them to climb down the cliff to get away from you. For 3 to 12 rounds, could be as little as 3. They could then immediately start climbing back up, and you could then try and turn them again, and so on and etc. Rolling at 1d6 plus 6 to see how many you got, or a d12. You're picking up what I'm putting down. Yeah, if your aura is pushing the monster back, and it's not physically pushing them back, that they're retreating of their own recognizance. But if your aura is making them leave you alone, then as long as they've got room to get away from you and you're not turning to attack to bring them into your protection radius, you're fine. Well, we are just about at the top of 2 hours, and my Zeusie's out there sticking his head in the door. He wants his prescription and to go to bed. Found out today he is deaf. My Labrador Zeus cannot hear. It does not cause him any physical pain. It's not like his ears got infected and then popped and quit working. He's just old. And he can't hear anymore. So other than that, good news from the vet today. And when I get paid next week, I got to buy him an antifungal shampoo because he's got yeast infection in his paw. Not an infection. They're seeing some yeast in his paws. So I gotta wash those up. But anyhow, Squirrel Hermit says you may be able to spook them off a cliff like a lemming. They're not really. That would be like trying to spook a robot off a cliff. Because skeletons and zombies, it's like, you're not going to make them afraid. Sourdough, I don't. Oh, the yeast, yeah. But anyhow, so that's where we'll go ahead and wrap it up tonight, everybody. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you, Alan Canning, for the super sticker, Gonzalo for the super chat. Thank you all. I really appreciate that, guys. That is super helpful. But what's more super helpful is if you haven't already, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. You know it's fun. We're going to be back tomorrow night with Gamma World, the Gamma World reboot. And we will return, and hopefully you will, to watch some fun. And hopefully between now and then, you guys don't run into the dreaded owl bear. Peace. Love you all. Good night.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.